Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing us to share our journey, and we want to hear about yours as well. My name is Abby Crew. I am the Associate Dean of Academic Planning, Assessment Improvement, and Impact at Colorado Mountain College, and I'll be co-presenting with my colleague, Dwenna Holden.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Dwenna Holden, and I'm the Program Director at Colorado Mountain College for English Language Acquisition Programming, Adult High School Diploma and Equivalency Programming, as well as leading our Multilingual Student Initiative for student success. So we'll be talking about that today as well.
If you all would like to introduce yourself, we have a nice small space, so we'd love to engage in conversation. If you're not comfortable with that, we totally understand as well, as the session is being recorded. But if you want to come off mute or share in the chat where you're calling in from and what your position is, please feel free to do so. Again, no pressure if that is not your choice as well. I want to share a little evolution of this presentation that you're about to witness. It has a fun story of iteration and improvement, like most things we do in higher ed. It started as a call for a presentation to our concurrent enrollment student, or it was administrators in the high schools that came to a concurrent enrollment summit in Colorado. And sort of the last minute audible was to include Dwenna in the presentation. So we pulled it together, and it went so well that we were asked to do it again in an online setting. We actually just presented much of this content at the Association of American Colleges and Universities conference on student learning, academic success, whatever, I don't remember what class stands for, but it was an 8-minute Pechakucha session. And so I'm very grateful that we have a bit more time together so we don't need to talk just so quickly. So without further ado, I will bring up our slides. Can y'all see the slides? Okay. Okay, great. So at Colorado Mountain College, we are a Hispanic serving institution. I think that's an important context for the work that we're about to share. We are also heavily concurrent enrollment, so over 40% of our students are concurrent enrollment. Dwenna will share some of the statistics about our student population that are English language learners and identify as Latina. It is obviously over 25% to indicate that we are a Hispanic serving institution. We're spread across 11 campuses, over 14,000 square miles, mountain passes, and valleys. And we are in the western part of Colorado. So a lot of interesting context to navigate for us. So as you saw in the description of this session, we will describe how leveraging institutional identity and community context can be a force for innovation, and that's where the ideation of these 2 certificates came from. We'll present the stackable certificates, and they both have high impact practices embedded within them to meet the needs of our students and our community. And we'll explore how community cultural wealth framework drives our pathway creation and explore how to build pathways from non-credit to credit-bearing courses for English language learning students. So that's what will come in this presentation. So a brief timeline of our journey. We started in 2022 with our institutional student learning outcome updates. We identified knowledge, involvement, and application were outcomes that we wanted for all of our students. We have 120 different certificates at associate and bachelor level credentials at Colorado Mountain College. So we are a dual mission institution offering associates and bachelors. From those institutional student learning outcomes, we were able to kind of see a lot of the work that we're going to show right now. So that became the bedrock really of our innovation. Our academic and career communities were established in fall of 2023 when we became a guided pathway institution. Prior to the 2023, we actually didn't have a general education course, so we adopted a gen ed core that helped us organize a lot of this work as well. And in spring of 2024, our curriculum committee approved a general education certificate that really was promoted in the concurrent enrollment spaces. And when we continue to pilot our e-portfolio as the high impact practice within that general education certificate. So I'll present some of the information on that, and then Dwena will share the other certificate that we're sharing with you all today. So again, as I shared, the knowledge involvement application institutional student learning outcomes really were the bedrock of a lot of the innovation that came about. They map to our what we call GT pathways, or guaranteed transfer courses in the state of Colorado. So we had this one-to-one alignment, which was really quite convenient to organize our general education core. What we wanted our students to learn and demonstrate within Colorado Mountain College would translate into their GT courses that they could take into a bachelor's program at Colorado Mountain College or into other institutions if they chose to matriculate elsewhere to obtain their bachelor's. And in smaller sort of snippets from certificate to associates as well. So we participated in a Credential as You Go research grant, which was really cool and offered us a lot of innovative information, ideation, and research. And so from this participation in the grant, we were able to really understand that employers need workers with industry-specific knowledge and skills, and we articulate that in our institutional student learning outcomes as well. And they increasingly value non-technical skills, also called human power, fundamental, or essential, durable, not my favorite word, soft skills, such as communication, teamwork, and emotional intelligence. And we show how those show up in our curriculum as well through our institutional student learning outcomes. What's really exciting is that we can demonstrate this paired with our career technical education certificates as well. So we're able to credential our graduates with sort of the career technical education credential that they need in the workplace. And if they choose with this general education certificate, the sort of durable essential skills that employers are asking for. So again, employers struggle to find the workers they need because of the non-technical skills and knowledge are not really well documented or credentialed, but we are doing that at CMC with the essential skills certificate. We are documenting and credentialing these competencies that employers are asking for. So really, for all post-secondary systems, we're challenged to meet the demands of labor market, and lifelong learning is certainly a component of that. And also that shows up in our institutional student learning outcomes as well. So we know that incremental credentialing helps to close equity gaps, and that's why we're really focusing on this with our stackable certificates and credentials in our academic pathways at Colorado Mountain College. It's a strategy that holds promise for narrowing these equity gaps because such credentials allow people without a college degree to get recognition of their knowledge and skills and ideally gain greater access to family-sustaining wages. It also creates on-ramps and off-ramps for those with some college credit and no degree. It also offers sort of bite-sized chunks of education where students can come and still maintain job, family responsibilities, earn a credential, leave as they need to, and then re-enter the system. So it really acknowledges where students are, the context with which they are coming to our institution, and the demands that they have placed upon them beyond academics. So this is what our stackable credentialing looks like in our academic pathways. Dwena is going to present on the English Acquisition for Academic Purposes certificate. We have a dual language certificate that will be in creation for the future that Dwena will talk about briefly. You'll see the Essential Skills certificate is basically the gen ed core chunked in a certificate, and all of those stack into the associate, the certificates, the Bachelor of Applied Science, the Bachelor of Art, and the Bachelor of Science degrees. We've been super intentional about the stacking of the curriculum here. So I think my last slide is the the what of the general education stackable credential. So it's one course in written communication. It's one course in math. It's one course in a variety of offerings from arts and humanities to history to social and behavioral sciences, and then up to two courses of electives within any of the guaranteed transfer electives, plus ePortfolio, which we are piloting, and that's a 15 credit certificate. We actually have 72 students in high school petitioning to graduate with the certificate this first semester that it has been rolled out to the high school. So that's really exciting for us to see those numbers come in. One of those, if you build it, they will come data points. Actually, I have two more quick slides. We do have a landing page for are promoting the essential skills certificate in concurrent enrollment spaces. So area high schools can share this landing page, forward-facing Colorado Mountain College EDU page with faculty and parents and students to talk about what it is and how students get it and really the value of it. And the value of the fact that students can graduate from high school and have their certificate in general education. And so that's pretty exciting to communicate information. And last but not least, we have a visual of the ePortfolio journey that can help students capture their experience along their time with us at Colorado Mountain College, so they can tell their story, identify who they are, why they're coming to CMC, what they hope to gain from it, demonstrate their sort of knowledge competency in that institutional student learning outcome by uploading an artifact from one of their classes, engaging their story, demonstrate how they're involving their newly gained knowledge in their community, and then applying those skills as they move into the workforce potentially. And finally, reflecting on their experience here and how they learned and grown. And it's pretty exciting for the students who choose to engage with the ePortfolio. So I will turn it over to Dwenna Holden to talk about English Acquisition for Academic Purposes certificate.
Thanks, Abby. I kind of want to throw a wrench into this and wonder if it's a good time to break and ask if there are any questions about essential skills before I move into the English for Academic Purposes certificate and the dual language certificate, just because it's a lot of info and I think we have the time and we have a small enough group where, if you don't mind, if we could maybe address questions for essential skills now with that. What do you think?
I think that's just fine.
Are there any questions for Abby on essential skills, or, sort of how that started and how it's going? I mean, we're happy to also just keep talking if that's what you want, but I think we both prefer a little bit of interaction if that's helpful.
I can actually chime in and ask a quick question about the ePortfolio you just shared. So is that part of the requirements for graduation, or is it just recommended assignment? How do you present it to the students?
That's a great question. It is not a requirement right now because we don't have enough faculty engaging the ePortfolio in their classes, but we do have faculty who have created signature assignments that they are connecting to ePortfolio. So we have some faculty who are using it. The more faculty we can get to utilize the ePortfolio, the more the students will be exposed to it, and it's an ongoing effort. So it's not a requirement, and what I hope is that students see the value of their living transcript and the documentation of their learning and growth at CMC, and then sort of demand of other faculty who are more reticent to engage with it and say, like, where's the ePortfolio here? I want to keep doing the ePortfolio. We have partnered with Digication, so we have 300 student accounts for all the students or whomever wants an account, and that account will stay with the student beyond graduation. It is the student's proprietary information. They can change that account, so that travels with them beyond CMC.
That's a brilliant idea.
Thank you. We just need more faculty to adopt it, and we're trying. Grassroots efforts.
Okay, if you want to pop the slides back up and there are no other questions, I can go ahead with this and then we'll ask for questions again at the end. Thank you. Okay, so I am going to talk about our English for academic purposes, our English acquisition for academic purposes certificate, which is new for us at Colorado Mountain College. And I also want to talk about the dual language certificate that we have planned. But I think what's important before I talk about that is to set up a little bit of context, and this is building on what Abby started with in the beginning of the presentation about, you know, our size and sort of how we're spread out over a mountainous region that is largely based in resort communities, also very rural, and we are serving primarily Spanish-speaking communities. So we are a Hispanic serving institution. We got that designation in 2021. And to be quite honest, it wasn't something that we had to try all that hard for. And so, you know, we've been pushing on our institution to really look at the servingness aspect of being an HSI because we have such a high population of folks in our communities who identify as Hispanic and Latina, and we have such a high concurrent enrollment participation. The 25% enrollment for us to become an HSI was not a huge stretch. So what is a stretch, I think, is truly being a serving institution rather than just an enrolling institution. And so Abby and I are part of a group of folks who are really trying to hold our institution's feet to the fire when it comes to really like earning that title and being stewards of a title like that. And so we have a strategic plan that has these 4 commitments: care, equity, innovation, and integrity. And you know, in each of those things, we have pushed our institution to have sort of specific language around how we are serving our communities. So again, I'm the program director for our English language acquisition programming at our college. And so it's one of the largest programs that we have, although it's often sort of thought of as separate or other, or it's sometimes, you know, it's not even counted sometimes because our students are in a non-credit space. And so I fought hard to have one line in our strategic plan and the equity commitment that says that we will build pathways that are clear and accessible for the completion of degrees for students, including English language learners, adult high school credential learners, and concurrent enrollment students. And so I have this one line in our strategic plan that I'm able to point to all of the time when I'm doing this work. And that has been really, really helpful in creating the context and the foundation for the work that I'm doing. This has led to the creation of MAPAS, which stands for Multilingual Academic Pathways Advising and Success. And this is the really focused effort to increase the matriculation of students in our English language acquisition programming into our credential and degree program. One slide I don't have in here that I probably should is a statistic I want to share with you is that in 2022, we did a survey with our English language learning students, and now that it's 2025, that seems like old data, but this is the piece of data that started all of this work. We surveyed our students and asked them if they were interested in continuing from English language acquisition programming into credential and degree programming, and 95% of them said they were interested. 95% of our students said they were interested in continuing on from English language acquisition classes into credential and degree programming. That completely shifted the narrative that our institution used to tell about our students and what they were doing at our institution learning English. And so take that and couple it with the historic data that says that even though we have a 95%, 95% of our students have a desire and interest to continue, only 2.8% of our students have ever matriculated from our programming into credit programming, and historically, fewer than 1% have ever completed a degree. And so that is a reflection of our system and not our students. And so this was an example of how we could use data to really shift the narrative and disrupt this narrative of, I don't know if you've heard or what you all do. I can see that somebody in the chat is in my line of work, where oftentimes we hear students are just here to learn English, and that's it. And that's a very limiting and sort of deficit-based and stereotype that our students unfortunately fall victim to, I think. And so this data has really helped to shift what we do at our school. And so what we then needed to do is figure out, okay, what's going wrong? Where are we? Where do we have gaps? And what our department knew was where we knew where our gaps were. They were with advising, they were with support, they were with information, they were with access, and they were about the fact that we didn't have consistent experiences across the college for our students. We've got 11 locations. That means 11 different kinds of experiences, unfortunately. So creating MAPAS was about how we could create system-wide change so that we could have new systems that support multilingual learners and their lived experiences and how they come to us and how we can honor their cultural capital as they come to us and support and build systems that honor all of the things that they come to us with, instead of saying, oh, instead of sort of focusing on what I think has been a negative deficit-based conversation, like, what are the things that they don't have when they come to us, like digital literacy. And so this is, coupling the one line that I get to point to in our strategic plan with this work of MAPAS and sort of reconsidering how we can build new systems at our institution to support our learners and build these pathways for greater access. This is the work that's come together that's allowed me to be able to create new certificates and new opportunities for our students. So that is the institutional context around this work. And the next slide is about sort of the linguistic context that we sit in as an institution and why we're focusing on Spanish first and then other languages after that. So the linguistic context of Colorado and where we are on the I-70 corridor through the middle of the state. And it's really, really, we're called the bilingual corridor of the state. And so if you consider the fact, like nationally right now, 1 in 10 students in the US are multilingual learners of English. In the next 10 years, that statistic will increase to about 20%. So 20% of the students in the US will be English language learners in the next 10 years. Colorado ranks 7th highest in Hispanic and Latinx population in the nation. And in Colorado, about 75% of the home languages for our English language learners is Spanish. So we know that we are serving a very high population of folks whose Spanish is their first language. And we do also serve students who come to us with other languages, but is an overwhelming majority of folks who come to us with Spanish as their first language. And so this is a good place for us to start. Many of the schools that are in our region have dual language immersion programs, K through 12. So many in our region that it's more than all of Denver put together, which is really pretty incredible when you think about how big of a city Denver is. And area high schools in our region also have students who are graduating with seals of biliteracy. So thinking about how we continue to serve those students is really important. How can we continue to honor their skills and give them pathways that build upon those skills that they're getting certificates in high school for? Those are things that I think about all the time. And the fact that the ESL program at CMC is the 3rd largest program is really pretty important as well. So if you think about all of the, we're a dual mission college, and so we have lots of bachelor's degrees and associate's degrees, and we think about what our big programs are. But I always like to remind folks that the ESL program serves nearly 2,000 students a year and is the third largest program at our college, even though it's not an undergraduate program. So this is a large population of students that we serve that we're talking about. And again, considering that we're a Hispanic serving institution is what's driving the work in honoring the dual language skills that our students have. Again, just to sort of look at the population, I think it's also really important to take a look at this. And this is information that I share with my own institution because I don't think it's really widely understood. That 25% requirement to be an HSI is the minimum enrollment that you need to have for Hispanic and Latinx students. We're sitting at about 27 to 29%, depending on what time of year you look. And again, that is looking at our students who are in undergraduate pathways. If you then sort of zoom out and include our students who are in our English language acquisition programming and our high school equivalency programming, that number increases to 37% of our students who identify as Hispanic and Latinx enrollment or Hispanic and Latinx college-wide. And then if you look at just our students in our department, 84% of our students identify as Hispanic or Latinx. And so, you know, when folks ask, why are you just looking at bilingual skills? And when you talk about bilingual skills, why is it just English and Spanish? Why aren't you looking at other languages? This is where we're going to start because this is who we are serving and this is what's relevant to our linguistic context. And so that's going to, you know, differ for different institutions. But this is again, the data that drives our change. So a little bit about MAPAS. You can see the mission here is creating culturally and linguistically responsive asset-based systems of support to serve multilingual students equitably and consistently across all systems of the college for ease of access to career and academic pathways. It's based on these 4 ideas that some of which I've already shared. You know, the Mountain Future Strategic Plan and that wonderful one line I've got in our plan in equity that points to our students and creating pathways for them. The fact that we're a Hispanic serving institution. And we have a Compass initiative and that really is looking at the whole student experience and how we can create holistic advising college-wide that includes bilingual support for our students who have that need across the college. And we're also creating this shift where instead of thinking about how our students can be college ready, we're trying to shift and say, okay, how can we be student ready? And so MAPAS is really about how we can be student ready for our students. And this is also really heavily based in Tara Yoso's work on community cultural wealth framework and linguistic justice and linguistic capital. And then MAPAS itself is broken into 4 areas of focus. We're really focused on bilingual holistic advising for our students, curriculum development, and that's in the space of both our English language learning areas as well as our undergraduate areas where we can develop dual language pathways and sometimes Spanish only pathways. And so it's not just curriculum development for English language acquisition, it is curriculum development really across all of our programs when we think about how we can honor linguistic capital. And then that has a natural connection to multilingual assessment partnerships. So if we have placement tools or assessment tools so that we can make sure that students are landing in a place where they can be successful, we want those to be relevant across the college and all of our programs and not just standardized. So we're moving away from things like the AccuPlacer and other standardized tools. And we really are looking at program-specific assessment and placement so that not so we can create more barriers for students, but so we can make sure that they're going to be successful where they land and that we have the proper linguistic support for them as well where they landed, so we can design that language support. And then finally, college-wide training, because really, I think when you're trying to decenter English as the main mode of communication in higher education, we need training for that. And so how are we making sure that we're providing culturally responsive support across the board in all of our systems and all of our offices, departments, no matter what we're doing. So college-wide training is a big Okay, so how did we get to an English for academic purposes certificate? It's important to understand that now we have two levels of English language acquisition. We have what we call our bridge level English language acquisition courses, which is, pretty standard ESL classes that go from low beginning to advanced and intensive level courses. Those are all in what we formerly called a non-credit space, but we have rebranded that with a more asset-based label, and that's called the bridge level. And this is really intended to bridge students into our credential and degree. The bridge level also includes our high school equivalency pathways as well. So we have a couple of ways of access from, to sort of meet students where they are and help them with what they need in a competency-based model, and help them to bridge into credential and degree pathways if that's their desire. So what we have done is we've taken one of our intensive levels. We used to have 3 intensive level ESL classes, and we've taken one of those and elevated that into what we call English for Academic Purposes, EAP. That prefix is not new. We didn't make that up. That's, used in other states. We've just adopted it because we felt like it's pretty clear, it says what it is, and we wanted to distinguish our credit level English acquisition courses from our bridge level. So we've elevated one of our intensive courses into an integrated English language acquisition course in EAP 1050. And that is a course that students can take at the undergraduate level. They earn credit for that. And we also have EAP 1250, which is a language support course that's paired with a communications course that you'll see on the next slide. And so those are 2 new English acquisition courses for CMC at the undergraduate level that we've just had approved by our curriculum committee this year. And that's really exciting because I have about 20 years of experience in K-12 and higher ed, and with concurrent enrollment. And I spent a lot of years watching English language learners sort of be excluded from the concurrent enrollment space. And one of my goals when I started this position was to create access for those students. So how could we create space and a place where students who are learning English can earn credit for doing that? We give credit for students to learn Spanish and to learn other foreign languages. So how could we sort of flip the script and give them credit for learning English? And so this creation of EAP 1050 and 1250 allows us to offer these courses as part of a certificate, which then means we can have these classes be involved in our concurrent enrollment spaces at the high school, which is really exciting. So the next slide has the structure of the EAP certificate. So I'll start in the middle with the 3 sort of classes that is part of that certificate. So we've got our EAP 1050, which is a 4-credit class, and that is an integrated language acquisition skills class. And it's really sort of like the highest level English language acquisition class that we do. And so that's for students who, maybe they don't feel confident enough to take an English comp course. Maybe they happen to take the AccuPlacer and they're scoring below the threshold of the comp 1 requirement. It's just that sort of foothold into the credit space for students. And we want to make sure that we are creating a space where students feel safe, where students feel welcome, where students feel like their language skills in all of the languages they speak are valued. And if their wish is to go on to credential and degree pathways, when we have them in English only, this is a way to do that. EAP 1250 is a 3-credit course, and that is a language support class that students take alongside COM 1250, Communications 1250, which is a GT class, and that's our interpersonal communications class. So students can take interpersonal communications, and then they take this EAP 1250 along with that, and it's like it's a support class for that specifically focuses on the sort of tools and support that language learners specifically may need when they're taking college courses. So the certificate itself is 10 credits. And we have two ways into the certificate. So the prerequisites for the certificate are either the successful completion of our 2 intensive courses at the bridge level, so ESL 9018 and ESL 9020, or for students who, maybe don't come through our ESL program or don't take the intensive courses, we have an EAP assessment, which is a placement tool. So students can take that and be placed into EAP. And so that's a tool that we expect our concurrent enrollment students in the high school space will be using that tool. And anyone who doesn't come through our ESL program or doesn't take in the intensive level and our bridge level courses can take the EAP assessment and be placed into the EAP 1050. So those are the two pathways into the certificate. And the sort of bragging rights or things that I think are great about this new certificate for us is that we are the first college in the state now to offer this certificate. So we're the first and only college in Colorado that offers a certificate for the acquisition of English. English language learners are now eligible to be in that concurrent enrollment space. And so we're really excited to see how that takes off this fall, because this is brand new, just approved this year by our curriculum committee. So we'll be starting in the fall and the spring with a certificate with our area high schools. And the completion of the certificate is a prerequisite equivalency for English 1021, which is our Comp 1 course, which is the guaranteed transfer course. So if they take this certificate, they don't have to do any of the other requirements that are prereqs for English 1021. The certificate is a prereq equivalent. And the certificate stacks into the essential skills certificate that Abby talked about, and it will stack into our future dual language certificate, which I'll talk a little bit about on the next slide. And we're also developing a translation and interpretation pathway that it can stack into as well. So it's pretty exciting. So this will hopefully, like, we're doing work on the dual language certificate. It doesn't exist yet. This is something that we are still building and will gain, we'll request approval from our curriculum committee. But why are we doing this? So the academic benefit of having a dual language certificate for us, it really is aligned with that idea of micro-credential stackability. So like Abby showed that slide at the beginning of sort of how all of our certificates, or at least these certificates, stack into our associate's degrees and other certificates we have in associate and bachelor's degrees, makes sense to us. And we know that, the research says that this is good for students as well. It's another stepping stone into credential pathways. So, it's just a way for us to allow, or I think create a safe space for students who maybe have gotten the message that higher ed's not for them, or have had experiences where they maybe feel like they're not included. And so we want to make sure that we are sort of dismantling those barriers and creating and reconstructing more, I think culturally responsive and just better, more equitable practices in higher ed. And this also gives our students early exposure to the mastery of the ISLOs that Abby shares. We are honoring cultural capital. And so again, this is based in Terrayoso's work. Because we're a Hispanic serving institution, we are living our servingness. We're centering the skills of our community, and we're creating equitable pathways for native English and native Spanish speakers. And so this degree is going to have this certificate will have two different pathways, depending on somebody, whether the person's coming in as an English language learner or a Spanish language. This is data-driven work. And so we've gotten student voice data that, that I shared earlier that indicates that we have student interest in translation and interpretation work. And we know we have industry and community interest in this pathway. And so this is just one stepping stone along that line. We have that linguistic context data that I shared earlier also about our institution, our community, and who we're serving. And so again, the data helps us to build better programming for our students. And we've got this data to improve our bilingual holistic advising and support. So we know that we have community, industry, and students who want this. We can help build better holistic advising resources and support to make sure that we're properly advising students who are interested in this. And we have institutional alignments that is going to help this work as well. Again, Hispanic serving institution, we've got a great strategic plan. We've got the work of MAPAS, which is aligned with our holistic advising work that we are implementing. And also we are trying to improve our concurrent enrollment demographic alignment so that it's more aligned to the actual demographics of the students that we're serving at our institution. So really excited about this new certificate and can't wait to see students enrolled in it as soon as it's approved. Finally, I just like to share when you're having a bad day and you're in this kind of work and you feel like you're not doing much, make a list. Make a list for yourself of the barriers that you know that your students face, and then make a list of the ways that you are changing that and the ways that your institution is hopefully breaking those down and rebuilding better systems. So I did this for myself recently and sort of made this list of, okay, what barriers did my students face? Price of tuition is always really difficult for my students, going from our bridge programming to our credit programming. And because we serve such a large population of undocumented students and we do that proudly, unfortunately, their residency status then often qualify or, labels them as out-of-state students. So they have to pay a really high tuition. That's always been a huge barrier for our students. We've had English-centered pathways for the history of our institution because that's the way higher ed is designed. We've had a lack of bilingual advising. We've had a lack of dual language and Spanish-only pathways, and we've had little to no engagement with English language learners in concurrent enrollment. But what have we done? So the solutions that have come about just in the last few years have really been incredible. And so I like, again, making a list to, reinvigorate myself and keep this work going. We have 2 fantastic discounts that point our students towards in-district tuition for both our ESL students and our HSE students. We now have pathways that honor linguistic capital. We now have bilingual holistic advising. We now also have numerous dual language and Spanish-only pathways in our higher ed institution, which is incredible. And we have engagement with concurrent enrollment students now, which we didn't have before. So when you're having a bad day, make a list of all the things that you've done for your students, and that can help with that fatigue I know we all experience. Happy to answer questions on any of those certificates. Thanks so much for listening to me talk for such a long time.
Thank you very much. I'm keeping an eye on the chat. No questions so far. Maybe they're still typing. In the meantime, I would like to ask you about, you showed us different levels of ESOL classes, right? And I was wondering, what are you using? What tool are you using to place your students in those classes?
So we are in a period of flux right now. We used to use CASAS, and that was not a good system for our students. And then the pandemic hit. And so our faculty developed an oral test for our students that could be given virtually. And right now that is still what they're using. We're looking at creating a common assessment across the board because some of our campuses use the short oral assessment that we developed during the pandemic, and then they use it in combination with a written test that comes from the Ventures textbook. And some of our campuses don't do that. So, we're really in this space where we need to come up with a common assessment tool that we can use, and that's gonna be ready for the fall. So we're like literally in the middle of that. But we really have sort of landed on this fact that these sort of large assessment tools that other institutions are using are not really what we're looking for. It's a tough place to be because it's like, then what do?
You're right. And we used to in Peralta district and in California in general, because I think this is a rule in California. We now have guided self-placement tools that students place themselves in one of the sections based on after using the guided self-placement tool. So we are trying to get used to it because we cannot place students to any levels. They can place themselves. We can just recommend, and sometimes it gets messy. Students enroll in levels that are not appropriate for their level, but in general, sometimes we miss going back to those placement tests. Like, I mean, I agree with you, Duan. Like, none of them were perfect, none of those placement tests, but still, it was still better than the judgment of, personal judgment of any student. So, but thank you for sharing again. And I'm looking at the chat, no questions from the audience, and which means that we can end our session and end the first day of the conference. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow at 9. We have keynote from Michelle Pacansky-Bronk, who will be talking about humanizing in AI era. So we are excited to listen to her. Michelle is someone who's providing trainings and webinars all around California. So we're really excited to have her. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your evenings. Bye.